Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another amazing episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. You guys know who it is. This is Tony Lynch, and I am the host of this podcast. And yes, we are your number one podcast bringing you conversations around death, dying, and grief, and all the messiness that comes in between it with some amazing people who are not only out here walking the walk, but they are talking the talk, changing people's lives one heartbeat at a time. Now, before I bring on the next guest, I would like to say for those who are tuning in, if you have not already, do me a favor, head on over to their YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. But most importantly, this is a live stream. So if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comment section. We'll be sure to answer them as we go. Now, before I bring on my guests, I would like to say that this is for educational purposes only. So without further ado, guys, help me welcome my next guest. Pearl, welcome to the show.
Hey, Tony, thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here and have a conversation with you today.
Yes, I'm excited. I'm excited. Now, before we start, introduce yourself to the audience. Tell people who you are, where you're from, and about the work that you do.
Thanks. So my name is Pearl Chiarenza. I am the Say Yes to Your Life coach. I'm the owner and founder of Women's Successful Living. I'm a wife to my husband of almost 40 years. I have two amazing sons, Matthew, who is forever 25, and Nate, who is 25 as well. But I love to help women step into what I call their Shiro life, where they can show up stronger, happier, radiant, original self, because they learned that people pleasing can take control of their life, and I want to help them release that.
I love that. And thank you for the work that you do. Very important, people pleasing. And before we dive into that, tell people how you got into this.
Yeah, so I'm a recovering people pleasing addict. 2015, when my oldest was actually a senior in high school, I was on a journey of just doing health and wellness coaching, and I had clients be like, "Hey, Pearl, like, would you talk to my friend because you're so great about helping me understand why I make the choices that I do, like the whole mindset behind what we choose to eat in during our emotional periods." So I found myself doing these coffee and tea dates and not getting paid for it, spending a lot of time. I was like, "All right, God, what am I supposed to do?" And it led me to go get certified. And at the end of a course I took that was a 6-week course about identity and destiny, we had to give our I am statement. I was still saying I was all my titles. I was a wife, mom, all those things. So if you'd asked me before, back then, what I do, I would have told you those titles first. And I realized that I was called out by a friend of mine during the class and said, at the end, my I am statement was still my title. She's like, "Who are you?" And I sat there and I was like, "What have I done for 6 weeks? I haven't figured this out." So I decided to go on a journey to figure out who I was. And I realized I was showing up for everybody but me, and I was tired, stressed out, and overwhelmed. So I just made a choice. I'd start doing boundaries and start making changes. And it came with a rock. I was walking along one day to go to a network group, and I saw this rock on the ground, and I picked it up and I kind of held it, put it in my pocket, didn't think nothing of it. It was a beautiful rock. Went into a network meeting and somebody's like, "Hey, Pearl, can you help me with this fundraiser? It had to do with animals or something." And I was like, my hand went against my pocket where that rock was. I was like, "No, I can't do that." And I realized I didn't die. I was still alive, and no, didn't hurt me. And they understood. And so from that day on, I made a commitment for 30 days to say no to something 3 times a day. At the end of my day, if I had not done so, I had to either email, text, or call somebody to say no. And that's where I started realizing saying no is a complete sentence, that I could do it with a really good amount of strength. That as I was doing that, I was less stressed. I wasn't waking up at those midnight stress periods. So I was becoming happier, which meant I was showing up for my family, my friends, and my business the way I wanted to. I became empowered to do things like writing and speaking and holding retreats about this. And then I was walking in the rooms with the whole, I call it that radiant glow up. I was just showing up more confident. And then I started doing what I was originally meant to do, and that's coaching and teaching. You see, growing up, I wanted to be an elementary school teacher, but now I laugh and say, all those kids I would have had at elementary school, I'm teaching them in their adult life now. And so that's what I do today. I help women step into, knowing that, it's a complete sentence. And, you know, Tony, we're going to be talking about this today. That led to 2 days before I lost my son. Our kids watch everything we do. And like I said, I didn't start this till my kids were in high school. So my kids watched me put them and everybody else first. And 2 days before our oldest son, Matt, passed, he was here in our garage. Him and my husband owned a business together. And it's like, "Hey, Mom, can you throw me that bottle of water?" So I tossed the bottle of water across to him. And the best memory I have is him saying, "Wow, not only have you figured out who the heck you are, but you finally can throw something because he played football in high school. I could never throw a football. But that memory, I lost him 24 hours later. That memory sits with me to know that he left this world knowing that I knew I had to put myself first. And so it's just a reminder to all of us that, we're not promised tomorrow. And so we need to embrace and do whatever we can for ourselves today because we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring.
Wow, that is truly amazing. And again, we both share a commonality with child loss and things like that, and that could change a person's life forever.
Yes.
And you've done some amazing things with it, and you're able to keep his memory alive. And what you're doing with that memory that you have of him, how exciting is that?
Yeah, it's really awesome. Matthew was born of our heart. We adopted Matthew when he was actually a month old. Our
Mhm.
younger son, we tried for 10 years to have kids. So Matt came through adoption and Nate came through infertility treatments. And Matthew was mixed race. So Matthew, in his own biological family as well, he was the only child of mixed race. So Matt had a lot of challenges with that growing up. And we, had different conversations. And really, like in his passing, too, we've learned so much about how he was bullied amongst his peers just because of his parents being a Caucasian. And so before Matt passed, he's seen me, write books and speak. So he had said to me one time, he's like, Mom, I think we should do something around adoption and raising kids that are not of the same culture. And I was like, okay, well, we were going to start working on that. And so we're moving forward with that in his memory. We're going to be releasing our first combined book with other families. It's called Beyond Skin Deep: Stories of Intercultural Adoption. I share about stories of, the good, the challenges, the things that you have to overcome, advice and things, if I knew then what I know now kind of thing. And I'm very blessed. Matthew, he has amazing friends, but one of our photographers that always did my retreats, her and her husband, they took pictures of us. The May before Matt passed was my youngest son's college graduation. And she too is adopted by a different culture. And so she's actually writing the foreword in the book for us because she got to know Matt pretty well. So not only is she sharing her story, but she's sharing a little bit of a glimpse in Matthew too. So we're releasing it on July 7th, actually July 25th. Matt was born July 7th, 97. He passed July 25th, 22. So we decided we're going to release it on the 25th. And funny thing about this, Tony, Matthew was always about numbers. So it's not surprising that he worked it out with God to go in the month of July around his birthday. But he is all about numbers. And so we decided to do the 25th so that that day is now something that's, we can go, we did this in memory of him. It's a great memory. And the loss is still heavy. It's always going to be heavy for us,
Yeah.
but we can think about what we've done. And I'm sure we're going to do more. I know we've already got lots of attention coming from this book. So I'm sure we'll do more. And I think it will always be July 25th of every year that we'll release a new book.
See, that is amazing. That is a great way to honor, your son, and a great way for people to participate who have had similar experiences to come
Yeah.
about and go, hey, this is what I've gone through. Great way to connect and bring awareness to it, right? Because we hear stories about it, but most people ever get the chance to witness what actually goes on. Now, which leads me to my first question with you. Where did your people pleasing come from?
Oh, so in doing the work and really thinking about it and working on myself, I realized it started back when I was probably it was like third grade. My dad served in the Vietnam War. He did 3 tours in the war. And so back then, you got kicked off a base. When your spouse went off to war, you didn't stay on base. So we would leave North Carolina to go upstate New York and stay with my granny. And so my mom was basically working and taking care of all of us. And so when my parents bought a house, my dad was just finishing up his time in war. And so I was the one who would take care of my brothers and sisters. I also remember one time my mom had gallbladder surgery. My dad's like, you can't go to school. You have to take care of your mom. So a lot of that, I believe, came back then. It's not no fault of my parents. It's just that's what families did back there. You stepped in and did what you had to do, no matter how
Right.
old you were. Unfortunately, it does, that's one of the things I coach with women. And we talk about how you talk and act in front of your kids will shape them the rest of their lives. And that's sort of
Hmm.
what shaped me into this people pleasing. And I met my husband, I was 19 years old, and we got married. I was about 22 when we did get married. And I also grew up in a household where my parents, if they had a disagreement, they just wouldn't talk. They would not communicate their issues or challenges that we're upset about. So you walked around in eggshells. And I was the oldest of three kids. So we would walk around in eggshells. And then all of a sudden we come home and my parents are like, everything's fine. And you're like, oh, that's what happens. That's how you communicate. So I had the people pleasing and communication
Mhm.
issues till I met my husband. Was communication got cleared, because one of the things that my husband is Italian. They talk and everything's about their hands. As you see, I have to hold my hands sometimes. But I remember one time I got upset with him, and I did what I knew to do. I just shut down and don't talk to me. I don't want to talk about it right now. So probably, I think this is probably, the fourth or fifth time when we've had a challenge, and he started having the conversation for me. He started talking for me. I was like, excuse me, that's not what I would have told you. I would have told you this. And then that led to me getting over the communication issue, like be able to communicate my realistic expectations to Chuck came from him. People pleasing took me a lot longer. Even with Chuck, no matter how much he, would push me to go do the things I want to do, I still was like, in my mind, generationally, it was embedded in me, right? My granny took
Mhm.
care of everybody. Like, she didn't work out of the house. She did everything for everybody when my great grandfather was at war. My mom, same kind of thing, like I was saying. She was working and running the household, right? So we grew up that way. I mean, I'm 60 years old, and so that's what I knew. It wasn't until, really, like I said, 2015, I realized I don't have to do everything. And I credit my sister-in-law a lot too. After I started working on this people pleasing, I remember visiting my sister-in-law Melissa one time, and my nephew he's now in fourth grade, so he probably was about 4 years old. And she's like, "Hey, you want to come upstairs with me? Sean's got to put his clothes away." I'm like, "What? A 4-year-old's going to put his clothes away? Like, I got to go see this." She's like, "Look, it's not going to be perfect, but he has to learn this is a team effort in this house. It's not mom and dad do this for everybody. We are running a household business." I was like, oh my God, you're like the CEO of your household, right? And so right then and there, I think that was like 2017 that happened. I was like, okay, no more stay-at-home mom. Everybody is the CEO mom, because you are running the household. You're running a household of your business is your house. Sorry there. but
No worries.
but so yeah, so I walked out of there going, we don't have to do we in our mind, our mind is our best friend, our worst enemy. In our mind, we think we have to do that, but that's just
Mhm.
us telling us something that's not real. When you really like sage those thoughts and realize I can ask for help, it doesn't mean I'm weak. It actually makes me stronger. I can set
Yes.
boundaries, and boundaries. I was just talking about something about this morning. Boundaries, the people who want to break the boundaries are those you have it around. You put boundaries on people, they want to break the boundaries. So, those are things we have to remember. And like I said, our kids see it, even like, with Matthew being, 25 when he passed, even like I said, he saw that up until 2015, I did everything for them. Like, you forgot your homework, let me go home and get it. You forgot your lunch, let me bring it up, all that stuff. And we don't have to, it doesn't have to be that way. And so we have to realize, and we're actually enabling our kids if we keep fixing things for them. If we keep doing, if we
Mhm.
don't fall and get a scrape on our elbow or knee, we're not going to learn that there'll be a scab there. It's going to hurt for a little bit, but you're going to be okay. We got to be able to learn
Yeah.
to make choices, because as Matt, with Matt's passing, I mean, it just goes to show like I said, a couple of days later, we no longer have Matthew here. And because I figured out who the heck I was and people pleasing and wanting to put myself first, I realized, and I share this with my clients, if you're not here tomorrow and you work a 9 to 5 job, somebody's going to slide into your seat. They're going to put somebody there to do that work. Somebody, if
Mhm.
you own a business like I do, I don't have, my business can't be handed off to somebody. So my business will close up. My clients will find another coach. Your family's going to miss you. They're going to figure out how to do laundry. They're going to figure out how to cook for them because they got to survive, but they're not going to
Mhm.
figure out how to get back the time that they could have had with you because you overflowed your cup first and then you allowed yourself to show up the way you wanted to for them. And so I
Right.
tell my clients all the time, if your friends that are going to come to your funeral, if they can't say one thing each, and just 10 friends can't say one thing each they saw you do for yourself, that's when I need to talk to you, because we need to change that. Because you should have
Yeah.
10 people walk in the room and say, I saw Pearl sit in her front porch swing. I saw Pearl go for a walk. I saw Pearl go have sushi with her kids because that's part of self-care. It's not selfish. You can do things with others, but it's how
Right.
you show up for your life.
Now, let me, oh, that leads me to this question because there's a lot of, learning who you are, finding your new identity, after people pleasing and, learning how to set boundaries, which leads me to my next question. What was this? When did you realize that you had a totally different identity from the one that you were living?
Wow. Well, it's kind of interesting. That question goes twice, right? Because
Mhm.
it goes so before Matt passed, when I realized I had a totally different identity, it was truly probably 35, 40 days into this journey of putting myself first. I realized I grew up not liking my name, Tony. I hated my name growing up. My maiden name was Knapp. I was short. My first name's Pearl. So you can think Minnie Pearl, Pearl go take a nap, Pearl Harbor. I would come home crying, going, Mom, I want to change
Oh
my name.
no.
And my name was I was the third generation of my name. I didn't like my name so much. I made my sister and brother promise me, you have girls, they don't need to be named after me. It's totally okay. I'm good with that, And then
Yeah.
as I went on this journey and realized that this people pleasing, I started embracing. I mean, everything I do now is around my name. You see, I brand myself around Pearls because that to me, I took my identity back. I stepped into not only overcoming
Mhm.
people pleasing, but my identity of who I truly am, that original self. And so that's, I would say I really got into it probably mid 2016. As I was really getting into work, I started to embrace that. And if you fast forward, people always say there's the day before and the day after your loss. There's my identity before Matthew passed, my identity after
Mhm.
Matthew passed, right? So if you
Yeah.
fast forward that to 2022, literally the day before Matt passed, like not even 12 hours before, I was sitting at my favorite place, the beach. I was enjoying the sunset with friends. We had French kids here from France. We were celebrating their birthdays. And then that next day, in 9 o'clock in the morning, I find out in the news. I didn't get the knock at the door. I find across a news feed on my phone, a Brandon man passes away in a tragic car accident. We hadn't been able to reach Matthew. We knew that unfortunately he was out upset and he had actually started drinking. So we knew that he was upset and we knew he was in my car. So I saw the phone on my phone. I saw it look like my car. I emailed to myself, opened up my computer, and I could see that was Matthew. And Tony, had I not seen that, the way I would have found out was a call. Because as soon as I saw that, I don't know why, God told me call the morgue. I called the morgue. They verified he was there. They didn't ask me who I was or nothing. Your morgues are not covered by HIPAA. Had I not done those two things, I would have found out. The phone rang like literally 2 seconds after that. And it was from the organ donor to want to know if I wanted to donate Matt's eyes. And I literally was like it ran just that fast. As fast as I told you, is how fast it happened. And so there's the identity after Matt's passing, right? And so
Right.
that journey of how the life before and the life after. And and if somebody's listening, we all grieve differently. We embrace this grief journey so differently, and you have to do it on
Yeah.
your terms. And I would just say you also have to know that no matter how we lost our loved one, they do not want us to not live. I remember Matthew when he was really struggling with this adoption thing, and he was going and speaking with Rachel, his counselor. I remember a few times like he had lost a friend to suicide, and I remember him telling us, "I would never ever do that because I watch his parents. I would not want that. I would never want you to carry that with you the rest of your life." So that's those two things: how he saw me and how he wouldn't want us to live after a loss. I was like, my husband and I were like, we've got to keep living, A, because we're still here, right? And B, we have a son, Nate. Nate is an amazing young man. It's his brother, so, and it was the four of us so tight. So the three of us are now even tighter. And so I had to make the choice that I still need to live. And, it's been a journey, that first year I think grief fog is so true. So if you're listening, it's so
Mhm.
true, grief fog, and it will creep back up on you without you even realizing it. And you have
Yeah.
to think about that, right? And so that, like, to tell you the other thing that happened is like, so the life afterwards, right? In the middle of all this grief and the like getting ready to bury Matthew and all these things and family here and everything, I had a friend that I had spoken for at International Women's Day before the year before, and she had asked me, she's like, "Hey, she calls me in the middle of everything. We want to honor you for something. All I remember is like, she wanted to honor me. I'm like, okay, sounds good. Like, I couldn't even get out that Matt had passed. I just said, okay, sounds good. So all of a sudden, like a couple weeks later, she calls me. She says, hey, you're coming up in September, right? We're going to honor you for a day named after you in Syracuse, New York. Tony, the funny thing about that story, my son, as I said, was adopted. My grandfather, I was a grandpa's girl as much as I was a daddy's girl. My grandfather had been involved in Chuck and I trying to have a family for 10 years. I was his favorite granddaughter. I'm not going to lie to my family that's listening. They all know it. But I remember when I adopted Matthew, my husband wasn't with me. We adopted him in California. I had to stay there. And my grandfather came to my mom and dad's house. I'm like, Grandpa, I got something for you in mom's room. I'll be right back. I walked out with Matthew and he's like, I knew you had a baby in that room. My grandfather was from Syracuse, New York, Tony. So I get this call randomly in the middle of Matt's passing, Syracuse, New York. I took that as a sign that my grandfather was like, I've got him here with me, right? And so I chose to go up because I was like, I don't know that I can do this. And my business coach is like, go, but you could tell her if you don't want to go, it's okay to say no. But I went. It was the best thing I could have done because it sort of helped me step back into, I still have to live. I still have to step into my life. And so there's that, the time before people pleasing, figure out who I was, to losing Matthew, to going back, he wants me to still live my life. And this is how we have to do it.
I love that. You said a couple of things there. And I want to ask a question before I lead into what you just said there. I want to unpack it a little bit. How important was it for you to start setting boundaries with people, telling people no? And the reason why I asked this, because I know for me, after the loss of my son, there was a lot of people that wanted me to still be the person that I was right before he passed away. Like I was always the guy that people came to, that they came to it for advice, that they came to come dump their stuff off on and things like that. And I got to a point to where I was just like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I can't do it. And it really made a lot of people upset, right? But it was the best thing that I could do because I don't think unless a person really or unless a person has gone through something or profound loss and things like that, they'll never understand what you're totally going through mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and sometimes physically, right? Because you're exhausted. That lethargy, you're very lethargic. Everything like brain fog, right?
Yeah.
You don't remember. Hey, look, for 2 years after my son passed away, I couldn't remember what I did.
Yeah, 100%.
I couldn't. I know that I did stuff though, maybe not a whole lot, but I know I did some stuff. But it was those boundaries that I had to set with people in order for my own sanity. And so I realized for me how important it was. How important was it for you to set those boundaries and learn how to say no?
Yeah. So so a little bit about that is like, we have to set boundaries, whether or not a loss or not, you have to set boundaries. Because if you don't, then that's where people pleasing shows up. If you're always letting people pull you, then you never pull for yourself. And I'm going to promise you, all the people you show up for when you need something, they're not always going to be there. During COVID,
Right.
the Shiro that I started, I saw during COVID this need for women who were online overwhelmed. I called it, I need a Calgon take me away moment, but I can't leave. They're being teachers for their kids. They didn't want to do that. Their families around them 24/7. So I started this 30-day self-care challenge. And so we showed up every day. We did something. And every Sunday we get together, and we still to this day, every Sunday we get together and we talk about the good, the bad, the different of the week. I call it a great way to end a week, a great way to start your week. Right. And so through that, I showed up for those women. Well, when Matt passed, like I can tell you, one of the girls lives here. Like before, I think she got in her car driving while I'm telling her I just got the phone call confirming Matt had passed. So they showed up for me. And the importance to circle back to your question is that the people who you think are going to show up, as I said, don't. When my parents ended up divorcing after 43 years of marriage, and my dad actually turned racist towards my son, which I would have never thought, because when Matthew was little, he idolized him. As Matt got to be a very strong African-American young man, that's where my dad's side came out that I never saw growing up. And so I found out some things that he did. And again, I was a daddy's girl. I actually sat in the driveway from the person who told me, and I asked God, what do I do? And he told me to write an obituary to my father. He told me that, listen, and my priest confirmed what I was feeling. He's like, we don't pick our parents. God picks our parents. We make our rules. So this is a game. I love football. So I look at it as my game of life as a football game. You're only allowed so many men on the field and so many men on the bench. And you can bring them in off the bench. And if they play by the rules, they can stay in the game. If they can't, then they have to sit in the bench. And so with my dad, that's what I had to do. And to this day, I still do not have a relationship with my father, because even when Matt passed, he sent me some not so nice things. So having those boundaries gives us peace of mind, right? So I divorced my dad. My mom, we had a strained relationship because at some point after they divorced, I had built a relationship with my father. I was in my 40s when my parents passed, but I built this relationship. My mother took it like I was just, disobeying her. I'm like, I'm not a little girl. I'm an adult, make my own decisions. So we had a strained relationship. And so we're building it before Matt passed. And then after, when Matt passed, we were going to cremate him, Tony, because we didn't, I mean, you don't plan for these things for your kids, right? We had nothing that we could afford to like do a traditional burial that we wanted to do. And my mother was very insistent that we take money from her and she let us pay. I'm like, Mom, we don't have the money. We can't, I don't want it back. I don't want it back. Long story short, she actually started holding that against us along with other things. So I was just like, you know what? I have to have boundaries around this. I cannot have this relationship. And so I look at boundaries like this. People will say to me, how can you not have a relationship with your parents? How can you, put boundaries around this situation or that situation? And I always go back to say, if I was in a relationship where it wasn't good for me, it was an abusive relationship and a narcissist relationship, all those things, would you want me to stay with that person? The answer is always no.
Right.
Always no. So why
Right.
would I stay around not just like parents and family, but people or things that are harmful to me, that don't value and line up with my ethics, my beliefs, and what I want to walk in my life with? Because if you do, I look at it this way. My friend calls it your balcony. You only have so many people on your balcony, and typically it's 5 people, and those closest 5 people are going to be there for you no matter what. The other
Mhm.
ones, they just want a piece of what you can give them without giving back. And so you have to know that you need to put those boundaries around, because like you said too, especially after Matt passed, we did lose friends, which is kind of interesting. I look at it, as crazy as it sounds, I look at it almost as a blessing as well, because they got to show me who they really were. They're not who I
Mhm.
thought they were, right? And so I still have a little bit of the people pleasing because I want to believe in the good of that person. And when some of those people walked out of my circle, I would have friends say to me, and this is so anybody has friends, and this sounds like you, listen up. I would have friends say to me, well, we saw them behave this way or that way. And I sat back, I go, okay, listen, you and I need to talk. Because if you're my girlfriend, you are not going to let me walk out with something on me that doesn't look good. Why are you going to let me hang around with somebody that's not good for me? I'm
Right.
like,
Right.
that's not how it is. So boundaries are so important. It's for your mental fitness, for your self-care, for peace of mind. It's so important. And those people who want you to show up, and this is a club, Tony, you and I can agree that we don't want
Yeah.
anybody to join us in as a loss of a child. There's nothing
Yeah.
like a loss of a child. And so I met a really good friend at Matt's funeral who sat with us, who also lost a child. And her and I are really good friends, and we tell each other, I wish I never met you, right? But for those people that have know somebody who's lost a child, things like the things you say or expect us to be like that other person, we're not. We're no longer. You'll see glimpses of us come out. I mean, like you were talking
Yeah.
about the fog. Like 2022, I just floated probably that next year. My business just kind of like just stayed. This year, I feel like, we're 2.5 years in. I feel like I thought January I was going to be good. Like Nate, my youngest one, turned 25. So now he's officially going to be ahead of Matt in age, right? I was like, I
Mhm.
got this. This is okay. I Nate's birthday was January 11th. I realized by near the end of January, I had gone right back into grief fog. So I was like, I got to snap myself out of this. I was just about through it. I'm like, I can't let myself go back because I love what I do. I love being able to help women not show up for their life and show up for their family. So I literally like took some time off. I actually went and did a Reiki session. I got I did some really one. I did two sessions. And what's so funny is one help me create an amazing new workbook that I'm working with people on, like in 3 days. And I published it last week on Amazon. The other one, let me release some grief that I was holding in. So, having boundaries around our feelings is so, so important, because you have to feel the feelings, but you don't have to accept everybody's behaviors either.
Right. I want to say, before I ask my next question, I want to say thank you to everyone that's been tuning in on Instagram. We got Christian Akela, we got the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross Foundation, Still Matteo, a few other people, people who've been tuning in on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you guys have any questions or comments that you would like to put up here or anything like that, please put them in the comment section. We'll be sure to answer them as we go. Other than that, guys, thank you for your support and allowing me to keep having these conversations and bringing this to you guys, which now leads me to my next question. Pearl, we had the chance to talk on the deeper level. We had a great conversation as always, right? We got the chance to talk, dive deeper into some other things. And you had said something. I want to touch on it a little bit before I ask this question. With those people that leave and things like that, one of the things that I used to get, and it used to make me upset until I realized that people were afraid to talk to me, right? So I had real close friends that had children, and my son was growing up with their kids and things like that. A great thing. I had probably half a dozen or so friends who had little kids. And we used to get together every week and do cookouts and play dates and all of these things. And me being a single father, it's like, oh, I'm doing the play date thing now. And so every Saturday, that's what we did. We go meet up somewhere, and that's what we did. And so it did hurt when these guys stopped bringing their kids around, where they stopped picking up the phone and saying, hey man, how you doing, and things like that. It did hurt until I actually had the chance to talk to someone. And I say that to say this. When I say this, I want everybody to understand that these things is part of the journey that you're going to go through, right? Sometimes people may not have the right words. They may not know how to show up with you. It's not their fault. You have to understand, when you go through profound loss, your life changes. Everything changes around you. And people sometimes, when they disappear, it's because they feel as they don't want to hurt you or remind you of the loss.
Yeah.
And so they do what they feel is keeping you safe by keeping their kids away from you, right? Because they don't know, they've never experienced it before. The crazy part about it is, and this is going to be a hard one for people to accept, it's not personal. All right. In the beginning, you are going to take it personal. This is a part of the journey. It's part of the process that you're going to go through. You are going to take it personal because you're not going to understand. There's going to be a whole lot of guilt and shame and a whole lot of what ifs and being angry. And look, do it. If that's what you need to do, you go right ahead and do it.
Right.
Let it out. Right.
Yep.
Now, you said something earlier, and I want to unpack it a little bit. The club that we're in, unfortunately and fortunately for both of us, we both are in the child loss club, and I would tell you, I, as much as I didn't want to admit it, there was a lot of people, a lot of men, a lot of women that I met that are part of this club. Now, I am part of other clubs too. The parent loss, the sibling loss, lost by this, lost by that, you name it. I've had the opportunity to experience it all and things like that. But man, you never really understand of how common it is until you're a part of it. And I'm right there with you, Pearl. I would look at a person and go, man, I hate that I had to meet you.
Yeah.
I really just, well, I changed the verbiage because hate is a strong word.
Right.
But now I go, I don't like the fact that I had to meet you.
Yeah, I wish I didn't have to meet you. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like the fact.
Yeah, it's interesting. Something I want to say, build on a little bit what you were talking about. I remember when Matt passed, one of the blessings that we have is Matt as much as our, your kids say they don't want to be around mom, and Matt would have his friends over and it's like, Mom, why are you watching? I was like, I'm not watching you, but he always felt like I was watching what they're doing in the backyard or whatever. I'm like, I'm just living in my house. It's got a big old window. But all of his friends would come around. Like we had many of Matt's friends stay with us sometimes, for family situations. And so one of the blessings is like we have one of Matt's really good friends. He's one of two. He's a twin. He works with my husband. We see him every day, right? And they call us mom and dad. We have his twin. We have many of Matt's friends that circle around us. But one of the first things that we did when Matt passed, and we told all our family that we're here, we're like, listen, couple of things. Don't hold back tears in front of us. We want you to cry in front of us because those are happy tears and sad tears. And it actually, for me, I let them know, and for my husband as well, it actually helps us heal too. The other thing too that we made a commitment as a family. Now Nate's married now, and Matthew had a beautiful girlfriend that she's like a daughter to us. So we do things together. We purposely make time for one another. But one of the things I told my friends, I'm like, because I had somebody say, Pearl, I haven't come around because I didn't know what to say. I go, that's exactly what you should have just said. I don't know what to say, because you don't know what to say when this happens. A loss like
Right.
this, there are no words for this, and to say things like, oh, they're in a better place. Sorry, I wish they were here with me. Oh, they lived a
Mm.
long life. Sorry, I wish they had a little longer life to live. Those comments, like, please check them in place and don't say that. I remember one time somebody said to my friend who had lost their son, they said, she posted and I called her. She said that somebody said, aren't you done grieving yet? And I was like,
Mm.
oh, girlfriend, they're a good thing they
Ooh.
weren't in front of me, because I might have gone to jail on that one, because it's like, you're never done grieving. I wake every day missing him. I go to bed every night telling him good night, So it's like, if you don't know what to say, if you're listening to us, just say that. Tony, I don't know what to say. How can I support you? That's all you have to say. What can I do to support you? And sometimes we may say nothing at all. I heard this story recently. I can't remember. He was being interviewed by somebody, and he was talking about, he had a friend that was struggling, and I think the friend was thinking about no longer wanting to be here on this world. And he's like, why didn't you reach out? And the friend said, but I did. And he said, I went and back and looked at my text messages, and he did. He was just checking and say, hey, how are you? But he didn't respond. So when you get those messages, respond, because especially now for us, one of the things that happened with us, Tony, is, it happened so quickly. We told everybody we could. Matthew's phone got locked up because his friends were trying to unlock it for me. I'm on social media everywhere. So you can find me by my name everywhere on social media. So I posted what was happening. But we couldn't reach all of Matt's friends. Literally 2 weeks after Matt passed, he had one of his friends stop by my house here and was like, hey, is Matt home? And we had to sit down and tell him. And it was really hard for him because he's like, I almost stopped by 2 weeks ago. And he didn't realize Matt had moved in with his girlfriend. So we had to comfort him. So now what we tell everybody, we started this movement the month of July. It's another way we remember Matthew, is we call it Make the Call for Matt. If there's somebody, and you don't have to wait till July. So if you're hearing this right now and I'm saying this, as soon as I get done saying it, do it. If there's somebody you haven't talked to in a while that's been on your mind, you're concerned or whatever, don't text, don't email, pick up the phone and call me. Hey, Tony, how you doing? You're on my mind. Just that means the world. You never know what difference you're going to make in somebody's life by that. Because, if you think about it and then they're not here tomorrow, you're going to kick yourself for not doing it. So that's another thing that I'm really big about, is like, don't wait. If it comes to your head, do it now.
Yeah. I want to go back a little bit. I want to talk about the people pleasing just a little bit and touch bases on it, because as you were speaking about that, I started thinking about a friend of mine, and she's a huge people pleaser. And I've been working with her to try to get her to kind of begin to move away from the people pleasing, to begin to claim her own power and things like that. And one thing I realized is that there's a lot of healing that she needs to do. And I've told her that. She gets mad with me when I tell her that, but I tell her because I'm honest, right? And if I consider you my friend, a true friend, meaning it's my job to stay honest with you, because I see some of the things that she's gone through. Now, I could tell you a little bit about her journey. Ever since she was a kid, she was abused, right? Mentally, verbally, physically, she was abused. And when she got older, she's gone through 2 marriages.
Mm-hmm.
One was an abusive alcoholic, narcissist, etc. The second one he was just a straight out narcissist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very, very physically abusive, Didn't do the whole drug thing, but I don't know what makes it worse, the drugs or not the drugs. It's all bad in my
Right.
eyes and things like that. She carries those scars with her. Um, and I watch the people that she surrounds herself with, and they're taking advantage of her. They're taking from her and not giving anything back. And she's forever complaining about, being tired, not having any energy, not knowing, how to think about things and this, that, and another. Trauma and people pleasing kind of go hand in hand,
Yeah, they
right?
do. Yeah.
Now,
Yeah, they do.
if you was to have a client like that, what would be the steps that you would help them to reclaim their identity, their voice, and um, some sort of mental mind state to help them start setting boundaries for other people?
Yeah, so I have this course that I teach. It's through positive intelligence. It's called PQ. So we start there, but one of the first things we talk about is, again, our mind and why we show up, or the sabotage. Like, if I don't, they think I don't like them. All those thoughts that come in, but you have to start inner work. So one of the first things I do is I make my clients stand up in front of the mirror, like the first couple of days that they start work with me, and videotape themselves looking in the mirror and saying no, like they just won $1 million, like saying no, like they're, oh my God, if you got $1 million, how would that feel? Right. They're like, are you
Mhm.
crazy? I can't do that. I'm like, trust me, you're going to do it. You're going to figure out you're doing it. The other thing I do too is I want them to find joy, right? So I want to talk to you about what are the things that bring you joy. So we do what's called a joy list. And they're like, oh, I got this. Like, I can do this. I'm like, no, 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 you're going to tell me one thing. It's going to take you 6 weeks to give me 10 things, because we're going to break down that one thing first. So that if you tell me, like I have a girl I work with, she cuts hair. I love cutting hair. Okay. So what about cutting somebody's hair brings you joy? Because I can go to the barber shop and get my hair cut. I don't have to go to a beauty salon. She's like, well, because sometimes when they come in, they're having a hard day. I'm like, okay, but I can have a hard day with somebody else. Why you? How does it change your life? Because if somebody's having a
Mhm.
hard day and they're not happy, that might bring me down. And she's like, because, and as I kept saying, well, what about that brings you joy? Like, when you write it down, you say, well, because this, you keep breaking it down. When we got done breaking it down for her, what she realized and why it brings her joy to cut hair is because people could, and I tell my hairdresser everything, and most of us do. I don't know about you guys when you go to the barber, well, we tell our hairdresser everything. So, so when we sit down there, we're just telling everything. She's like, they come in, they're stressed out. Like, I'm giving them some self-care time, and they're just letting me know everything. So they've like released everything that's been bothering them that day, that week, whatever. And so when
Mhm.
they leave lighter because they're not carrying those burdens, and they feel beautiful because they just had their hair done and maybe their makeup too. So those are things we're going to do. I want to go through that joy list. And then what we do is we start working on that joy list by creating a not to do list, right? So the not
Mhm.
to do list things are like, don't do negative self talk. Don't say yes. Don't say yes right away. If you think you want to do it, be like, can I get back to you? Right. Because then you're not saying yes right away and you're not saying no. Right. But if you know right off the bat it's a no, just be like, hey, that sounds great, and it's just not a good fit for me. You don't have to give a reason why, but that's like where we start, because like you said, if you don't, you're stressed out, overwhelmed, everybody takes from you. People want from
Yeah.
you because
Yeah.
you give them the opportunity. And you're right, trauma in our life causes people pleasing. You also talked about people please. What for me, what it was as a child, I was sexually abused by our my parents' best friend's babysitter. So
Mhm.
it shows up sometimes for me, but trauma
Yeah.
will make us think I got to protect, I got to, all those things. And the other thing too is I love to work with my clients to understand that it happened to you, but it doesn't have to be something you carry the rest of your life. It's
Right.
something, and everybody's go, oh, it's God's plan. I don't believe that God wanted us to go through trauma like that. There are some bad people in the world. However, he doesn't want us to carry the burden of it the rest of our life. So how do we release it? And so those are some of the things I do. I work with my clients on that whole personal development, the releasing of it. I'm very big about journaling, about meditation, and,
Mhm.
and things like that,
Mhm.
because once you start doing that, I got the best compliment. Here I am almost 10 years later on this people pleasing journey. And a friend of mine, she gave me a compliment. She's like, Pearl, I watch you show up for people Show up where if it's right for you, you show up, and then you know when to get out and you're done. You're like, okay, that boundary's done. You have it from here, right? And like I had a client recently who had some challenges with a family member, and it was very traumatizing. And she was doing things that, she was drinking, doing things that was just going to harm her. And I showed up at her door. I'm like, come on. I brought my friend with me who was good at trauma stuff. And like the two of us went in. I picked her up off the floor. I'm like, we're not doing this. This is not going to help you. It's not going to change anything. Let's get up, And I showed up and we set things up. And then I stepped out. I'm like, okay, this is what you got to do. And she was doing all the steps. So we have to, goes back to what I said earlier to your friend as she's listening. You're not promised tomorrow. So stop putting yourself on the shelf to give everybody else their todays.
Mm. Ooh, I love that. I love that. And when you were saying that, I swear we was walking similar paths and things like that. Especially now, I developed a 12-week program called Resilience. This seems to be the term, the most popular term nowadays. People are practicing resilience, and I developed this program. Like, it's been in the works for maybe about a year or so, and I wanted to make sure that I had it down pat. And very similar to what you did. Since I work with men, my approach has to be a little different, right? To appeal to the masculine nature of men.
Right.
And especially when men, are very closed off, that they don't know how to talk and things like that. And the program is actually really designed for them to put everything down on paper. Reason being, and you give me your thoughts on this. Reason being is because if it's out of here and it's on the paper, you now have to acknowledge that this is something that has happened to you, because we go deep, we go real deep, right? You have to first acknowledge that this has happened to you. Secondly, you have to hold yourself accountable for the choices behind that, right? And then from there, you're going to learn forgiveness. You're going to learn grace. And then we're going to start the healing process. Now, these are just steps, because we're not running a marathon. We're not running a sprint. This is a marathon, right? And so when it comes down to men, one thing that people don't understand, that the nature, although men are known to be masculine in nature and things like that, we're very fragile on so many different levels. The reason being is because we feel deeply, right? We just don't know how to express it.
Right.
And so part of the program, after you learn how to do that, you have to learn how to label it, right? You have to go, this is what I'm feeling. And we have a whole list of things that, that you could put along with there. And it may change over a period of time, as grief does, right? And what I found was, and this is why I say we must have been walking similar paths. There was a lot of men like myself who had been sexually molested when we were children, that carried it along with us. Most of us, I would say 95% of us, maybe 96% of us, were all taught the same things. You're going to have to man up. No one cares about what you're going through. Yep. Society teaches us the rest. People that we're around, that we surround ourselves with, in their environment. Now, there's a difference when I say this. In the environment that we're in, we will sometimes mimic habits from other people. This is what I call communal or shared grief, right? Yep. And you develop those habits, and over a period of time, you take on those habits and use them as they were yours. So that's another thing that I help men do as well. No, let's empty it out. Let's see what habits belong to you and what habits don't belong to you. Once we start to break that down, we get down to the bare minimum. They sometimes realize, they're like, hold on, I only have 3 habits that are mine. I know, right? But you just got rid of 35 of them.
Yep.
Holy crap. Who did you get these from? And they start listening. Like, they have to be honest. I got this from here, and I got the. Okay, how long have you been that way? Right? So now we're going through a timeline. And the reason why I do that is because I want them to understand how common it is, and to be more mindful of the people that you're around. If you're going to pick up habits from someone, make sure you're picking up habits of learning how to be financially stable. Learn habits of being mentally stable, right? Learn how to express your emotions, becoming emotionally aware, emotionally intelligence. Those are two different things. Now, remember, I mentioned earlier about their environment, but now here's the other side to it. The other side is creating an atmosphere where you can show up and be heard and seen and allowed to be able to talk without interruption. So this is the whole and that program, 12 weeks, by the time those men come out of there, I also encourage the men, hey, build relationships in the group and outside the group. Because once you leave here, I want you to have those connections.
Right.
And what they normally do, what I find, Pearl, is that they will come back in order to walk with those other men that are coming up in there, and they
That's
begin to be
awesome.
more comfortable with talking and things like that, right? With again, changing people's lives one heartbeat at a time,
Yep.
right? And it becomes a beautiful thing. It becomes a very, very beautiful thing, especially when you can see men start to heal, and then they go home to their partners, to their spouses, their children, and they begin to pour into
This
them.
whole ripple effect. Yeah, that whole ripple
Yes,
effect.
it's a ripple effect, and it's a beautiful thing. So now leads me to my next question before we start to wrap this up. In your journey of grief, what is the most, what is the biggest impact that it has had on your life and the way that you see the world now?
Wow, that's a great question. I think number one, it sticks my boundaries. Like, do not waver on my boundaries, because if I do, it's going to take me away from what I want to do. Um, it's to, like you were saying, to communication. Like we talked about our family. My husband lost his biological dad the day before he was born. His stepdad raised him. I love my in-laws were like what parents. They showed me what real parenting looks like. We lost both of his parents over the years. And so he's had a lot of loss. And he also lost his little brother before I met him. So he's had a lot of loss. So when Matthew passed, his emotions were different. I didn't question it because, like we said, everybody carries it differently. But one day he came home from because Matt and him owned this business together. So he was out working, and he came home, and I said, "So how was your day?" And he's like, "Life." And I sat there with that for a second. I'm like, life. I'm like, you're missing Matthew. He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. Like, so I had to learn his communication, right? So to
Yeah, yeah,
acknowledge the other person's grief too. But the big thing is, like I said, like it goes back to what your friend, right? It is your environment. Who you have around your environment will affect how you are. So if I was to just stay around people that are grieving, I feel like I would never come out of my grief, right? I would
right.
always sit in that loss. I met a lady at my first grief meeting I went to, and she came and she shared her story, and she got really upset, emotional. She's like, 10 years later, I hate sharing the story. And I looked across at her and I said, thank you. Thank you, one, for sharing your story, but two, to reminding me that this is never going to go away, that I'm always going to have it with me, but it doesn't have to define me. It just like, people pleasing doesn't have to define my life. So I had to learn to not fall into the victim mentality. Kind of, your friend, you're talking about your friend as we're talking, it reminded me too. She sits in the victim stage. We got to get her past the victim stage because she's not a
Mhm.
victim anymore. She's, moving on. So I think the biggest, most profound thing is A, my boundaries, and B, I have to show up for me. Like, what is it that I want to do? What's the impact I want to leave and, leave behind for my son Nate, if grandbabies, all those things. And it's that I still lived my life, that no matter what God or whatever the world throws at me, I still have to show up for me. I still have to
Mhm.
put me first, because we are an environment. And like I said, if we just put ourselves around people that always bring us down, you're always going to be brought down. But if you start putting yourself in places or around people that are going to uplift you, then you're going to
Mhm.
start seeing the world differently. And so that's what I keep doing. Like, if you come in my life and you are not, I start feeling right away that your energy is not good for me, I start pulling myself away and go back to my boundaries, because that's what's so important. I do a retreat every year too, Tony. In September, we have a women's retreat. It's 4-day pajama retreat, no makeup, PJs or yoga pants all weekend long. And we work on this stuff. We work on personal development. We work on overcoming people pleasing. We have fun. We, do stuff, yoga and things like that, and self-care things. But it's just a reminder, like I was doing it before Matt passed, and it's something I thought that maybe I didn't know if I could still do it. But I walk out of there every time after a retreat and I realize I have impacted at least 3 people's lives out of the 25 people that everybody gets impacted, but 3 people make a big change and like they do the
Right.
huge shifts, right? So I can't stop that. So I have to keep doing what my passion is because A, it's what I love to do. It's who I am, but B, for whatever reason God's given me this gift to do this, I want to do that. And C, my son saw me. My son Nate sees me doing these things. It's like I need to still be that example because they're married to, they had a powerful women in their lives. I want them also to know that, you can be you can be a couple, but you got to be your own self too.
Yeah. I love that. I love that because again, I can relate to everything that you just said right there. This beautiful gift that has been given to us of understanding grief, of being able to use it in a way to be able to help others, especially, you helping women understanding people pleasing and moving past their setting boundaries. It's all connected together. It's all
Yeah.
connected together. If we was to sit down and have conversations with individuals that do something similar, you will find that we have a lot more in common than we do than anything else, right?
Right.
And it's using those strengths and you know filling in what those weaknesses are in order to become a more unified force in the world. Because this is what we've been called to do. It's more prominent now than we've ever done. And like yourself, I couldn't see myself doing anything other than what I do:
Mhm.
podcasting, writing books, traveling the world, guest speaking, all of these different things. And I have a conference coming up right next month. The Global Grief Conference started it 3 years ago. Well, actually 4 years ago. This is our third annual one, and I would tell you, since the beginning up until now, to see the people that I work with and things like that do what they love doing, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
I just want to find out how can I be better at doing what I do. This thing called grief, this thing called life. I'll always be a student of life, but I'll always grief will always be my first love. And that's the beautiful thing about it.
Yeah.
And so
Sure.
now, with that being said, I have two more questions for you, bro. Two more.
Okay.
One, how can people find you?
Oh, that's so easy. I'm all over the internet, like Pearl Chiarenza, like my name's on the screen. Just look up Pearl Chiarenza. You can find me. You can listen to my podcast, Soulful Self-Care Conversations, which I know you're going to be on in a couple, like a week or so here.
Uh-huh.
So we'll have really fun conversations together there. So that's on YouTube and podcast platforms. But you can also just go to wsliving.com and everything I do is there. And to connect me with there and just send me a message. You can even book a free call with me if you want to learn more about what I do on my website as well.
Nice. And people, please go check her out. If you love this conversation, she has a lot more to offer. We didn't even scratch the surface of her intellect and what she does. And so please go show that support. Go to her YouTube channel, check her out over there as well. I will be up there. And if you love content like this, if you love listening to people have conversations, or maybe you have a story yourself and you would like to come on the platform, reach out to me. But if you haven't already, do me a favor, head on over to that YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. Now, my last question to you, Pearl, would be, if you had a superpower, what would it be?
Oh, if I had a superpower, it would be to change back time.
Mm.
It'd be change back time. I know life is not a remote. We can't do it, but it would be to change back time just to, of course, have another day with Matthew, I think would be one thing. To also maybe do some healing for my parents who, whatever their trauma was when they were growing up caused that parenting for us. I think it'd be some of that.
I love that. I love that because I think we all want to get down to root cause and we want the best for everyone out here in this place that we call Earth, right? I want people to have the best human experience that they possibly can to be successful, but also impact other people's lives in such a way to where it changes their outlook in a positive way,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
And
Yeah.
and of course keep evolving and doing what I do as well, right? And for everyone out there, guys, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. give my guests a huge thank you, a huge round of applause. If you haven't been tuning in, and if you just out there, just give her
Yay.
a nice
Thank you,
little clap.
Tony.
Pearl, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for this amazing conversation. I can't wait to be on your show as well. I'm
Thanks.
definitely looking forward to that. For everyone else, guys, we're going to wrap this one up. We're going to see you guys in the next one. I love you. Thank you for your support, and we're out.